that a child's early years spent at home with parents and in the community have a profound and lasting impact on shaping their language and cognitive abilities. They also have far-reaching impact on the child's social emotional skills and development. Rocket Learning as an organization is taking this philosophy forward in their work for student learning in the 3 to 8-year-old age group in India. Since they set up in early 2020, this education startup has been focused on early childhood education and foundational literacy and numeracy via community engagement, relying on technology-aided solutions and social media solutions to foster a model of engaging with parents in a program which is led by government and the Anganwadis. We met up with Siddhant Sachdeva, one of the co-founders of Rocket Learning, to talk about the work they have been doing and their vision for scaling this program. Hello and a very warm welcome to Edge Talk, Siddhant. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you, Shavita.
Siddhant, tell us when and why did Rocket Learning get set up?
Yeah, so all five of us, we're the 5 co-founders, Aziz, Vishal, Utsav, Namya and myself. I think all of us were interested in the development space, and all of us were gravitating towards the early childhood education and parental engagement as critical themes that we want to work towards. We started doing a couple of pilots in 2 districts with around 50,000 parents and seeing whether parental engagement can move the needle in early childhood education and foundational literacy. The pilots went well, and then we've sort of scaled on from that end. I think we were also sort of forced to think through how to use technology as an enabler and how to think through something which is scalable in the future. So I think that's how we are an EdTech sort of non-profit working in the behavior change sort of segment. So that's where we are today.
How did you all specifically narrow down on, the mission of working for learning outcomes by engaging and leveraging parents and community?
I think it's a function of time spent. So if you look at an average child in an Anganwadi or a school, even in a good government school or a private school, the time spent by a child at school can only be as much as 3 hours. A majority of the time is still spent at home. And I think coming from our own experiences, our parents spent a lot of time in engaging with us when we were at that age, giving us stimulating activities, giving us a diverse set of activities to engage with, right? And I think that's lacking today in the ecosystem because there are not enough people leveraging parents and communities towards that goal. Now we have to use that time which is at home smartly. So what we have as a framework is something that we call AIM, where we provide aspiration to parents and communities that this is what can happen if you invest in your child's education. I is information, where we give them information that this is how you can engage with your child. And M is constant motivation and measurement, where if you are engaging with the child and showcasing the correct behaviors, you're getting rewarded, and a system, it can be your school teacher or your Anganwadi teacher, is actually looking after your engagement as well. So I think that's where we come towards, pushing parents and communities to the right amount of time and the right quality of time to further learning outcomes, especially on foundational literacy and numeracy.
All of a sudden, there's a lot of activity when it comes to education, technology, products, companies, and solutions. Of course, India has some inherent advantages with availability of hardware, better internet penetration now. But what, according to you, are some of the main factors leading to this spurt of activity on the EdTech side?
I think there are 2 elements to this answer. One is the macro effects of, like you said, internet and device penetration. So I think we have to look at the household as a level and see whether the household has access to smartphone and then to internet, right? I think both these things, especially smartphone penetration, went up by around 20 to 25% just in the span of 1.5 years, which is like a sort of silver lining to the otherwise sort of bad cloud. The other thing is digital literacy, and we have to see that in context of other apps doing other sectors, right? You can look at TikTok or Instagram or Facebook. Around 40% of rural India is spending 200 minutes sort of every week on these apps. Now, how do you leverage the practice of becoming comfortable with apps or technology and access together and put it to good use? So I think that's one of the reasons, or that's the positive way in which we look at EdTech. Of course, EdTech generally boomed for the private sector and for affordable sort of solutions, but EdTech for Bharat, I think, is just blooming now. And I think the next 5 years will really dictate how we go about using EdTech in a wise manner. So it's not about putting the device in front of the child. We believe at Rocket that it's about using technology to reach the child, but you might be using parents as facilitators.
Another important area of interest, not just for Central Square Foundation, but I think very importantly for the government and many other orgs within the ecosystem, is to see what could be the role for teachers when we talk about leveraging EdTech for reaching out to the parents in the community setting and having them play an enabler role. How do you at Rocket Learning see the role of teachers in this whole equation?
That's a great question. I think there are very few solutions, be it EdTech or non-EdTech, which can work without the support of the teacher. So I think we have generally taken the outreach approach of B2G2C. So we are always having teachers as the face of our programs. In fact, 50% of our parents believe that our bot, which sends content, is actually the teacher. We see messages saying, thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir, come up in the morning where content is being shared. So I think giving credit to teachers is very important. I think technology can play a part there as well. Digital recognition has worked really well for us. Having focused campaigns where teachers are given small but achievable call to actions, which can be try this in the classroom, try this with the next parent-teacher meeting, so on and so forth, and then asking them to send something back, which can act as a sort of two-way engagement for teachers as well. There is a fine line between overdoing it, because I think there's an impression that the teachers might be getting too much overhead, and there are sort of multiple initiatives which are working, right? In fact, I think what has helped really is that in a state like Haryana, where CSF is already working, I think aligning at the state level that this is everything that is happening, and this is where technology can help, sort of really helps sort of shape the agenda properly. So in Haryana, with support of the CSF team, we are using the channel that we have to relay to the teachers that these are the trainings that are going to happen. This is the content plan that the state has planned. So why don't you try following it in the classroom? So as smart nudging, I would say. So smart nudging and recognition are two big areas which can work really well for teachers. And I think giving them as much positive recognition as possible, even if it's not directly attributed to them, but to their classroom, to their parents, I think that can work wonders.
Siddhant, Rocket Learning's journey started with a set of MCD schools in 2021. And since then, like you said, you've expanded to other states and geographies. What has been your experience and your learnings in working with the government, getting their buy-in, getting their support, and integrating it into how the state is running its own program?
That's a great question, Shavita. I think I personally come from a sort of private consulting mindset, and I've also consulted with government clients before. So it's been a journey for myself as well. I think the first sort of biggest takeaway while working with governments has been to have a lot of patience. I think it does take time and its own sort of cycle for things to move. Even in the EDMC's case where we started working, I think it took around 6 months and multiple meetings for us to convince them. I think it's important to have a voice in the room where key policy decisions or even peripheral projects are being discussed, especially pertaining to education. And there are a lot of other projects that the government might be thinking through. The second sort of biggest thing in my opinion is that you give them the assurity that you're building on top of government systems and not building something completely parallel, which let's say might or might not exist once our project or initiative is done. So usually we base all our work on existing systems, using teachers as reach out agents, using systems where teachers and parents are engaging or teachers and children are already engaging. And I think the other element which is more pertinent from an ongoing engagement basis is sort of sustainability. And sustainability is sort of two-pronged in my head. One is financial sustainability and the other is operational sustainability. I think financial sustainability, to say that, whatever we are spending on per child is probably subsumable by the government in the end state. So today our budget or our per child cost is less than 5% of what the government spends per child per annum. And I think that's possible for the government to imagine as cost to them. And in fact, we have a government in Bombay who's actually funding our project as well. And the other bit is about operational sustainability, where you have to give them the assurity that this entire system, this entire tool can work with government resources, even if it is part-time, and it's simple enough for them to operate that. And I think we are also building our product in such a way that the back-end platform is something that the government can use in a simplified manner in the end state.
Siddhant, in today's times with, digital being a way of life, and especially when it comes to both parents and children, and you spoke about Facebook and TikTok even in rural areas, right? Especially, I think the way digital and social media has become a given in life, there are genuine concerns on what it could convert into in the hands of, both parents and students from a harassment and misuse perspective. So, what are some of the ways RL as a solution factors those in?
Yeah, again, very interesting question, and I think this is something that we face even in the government conversations as we sort of pitch our program, right? I think the first thing is giving the program or initiative the official name of the government. I think that has worked really well in setting some base community norms. Most of our programs actually are not branded as Rocket Learning programs. I think none of our parents know about Rocket Learning. They would know about UP Mission Prerna or Maharashtra e-Aakar or respective district programs. I think that official tinge gives it a very clear sort of direction that this group is meant for education and for communicating between teachers and parents. The second thing is, I think, taking parents onto a digital literacy curve as well, because we don't always want the child to be the prime sort of consumer, the parent to be the consumer, and then the parent-child to have an interaction offline. I think that digital literacy curve and identifying where the parents are and taking them slowly onto it, I think has been another sort of key learning. I think the other is setting community norms in that digital community very, very clearly in the initial 2-3 months and repeating that till the point of, it becoming excessive as well. But I think it's important to set up the correct community norms in the first 2-3 months of the launch. I think with all these, we have seen the spam content on our WhatsApp groups less than 0.5%, and most of them are non-harmful spam, so like good morning or other sort of conversations between parents and teachers, which are still sort of okay for us. But I think we have tried to pivot them towards official responses. So having an official program name very clearly, having reach out agents as teachers, government teachers, or Anganwadi workers. So the face of the program is them, and then having clear community norms. I think lately we've also realized that having sort of customer care has been an important element of, answering any queries that a parent might have regarding, whether I should do this or that. Not directly related to, let's say, spam, but definitely helps in clarifying the objective of the group if a parent or teacher is confused about it. So I think that those are the things that have worked well.
We've spoken about sustainability. In the long term, what is the role that you see for parents going forward? You spoke about the silver lining being the digital penetration. I think one of the silver linings from my perspective was also the role and agency parents got back in the education function. So from a longer term perspective, what is your view on the continued role that parents as enablers, over and above, of course, teachers and the system being held accountable, can continue to play?
Yeah, I think fascinating question, and we firmly believe that parents are the child's first teacher and they will continue to have a large sway in how the child is learning and what the child is learning. I think this framework that we talked about, which is AIM, which kickstarts the journey of building habits with parents, I think is a good starting point. In the end state, I think it is about supply and demand in our head. So I think there's a supply from the government and teachers that education is important, this information is there. I think the demand from parents needs to be built up. That if I do invest time with the child's education, this is where my child can go. So I think we need to paint a good sort of aspiration, like the School Chale Hum campaign did like a decade ago. I think probably sort of Ghar Pe Bhi Padhe Hum is the kind of thing that we need now, which sort of creates that demand as well. And I think then it becomes a matter of supply and demand balancing itself out, and the political economy also kicking in. Because I think parents in time should demand such programs from, I think, the state or the district. And the district and state should have the wherewithal to give these programs back. But I think parents as the unit are really, really going to be important in terms of providing time and attention to the child. And then I think seeing its benefits as they go along. I think it's difficult to visualize benefits at this age, right? Because we work with 3 to 8 year old children, and I think it's they're not always tangible targets, but we are working towards sort of showing them improved scores or improved chances of admission or going to a better school, so on and so forth, and seeing which sort of aspiration clicks more, because it can be a very different answer for a state like Haryana or for a state like Uttar Pradesh, right? I think we have to identify where aspirations are also there and then take them onto that journey. So I think that will be really important as we focus on parents more.
Siddhant, thank you for your time and for sharing your journey, Rocket Learning's journey, from the perspective of EdTech teachers and parents. It was a pleasure having you with us today.
Thank you, Shavita. Likewise.
Thank you all for watching and do hope you enjoyed the episode. Do join us again next time for another conversation with an expert from the education sector towards creating solutions to ensure both better access and learning for all our children. We would love to hear from you. So please do leave your thoughts, comments, and suggestions in the comment section below, and like and subscribe our YouTube page for more such content.